Evening all, welcome to another King's Crusher radio show. So this week we're going to carry on looking at the best of the best from the 1970s. So these were games voted by members of ChessGames.com for the most interesting, most collected, most discussed. So this next game I'd like to show you in the series is Anatoly Karpov against Viktor Korchnoi, played in the Karpov-Korchnoi candidates final in Moscow 1974. So let's have a look at this. Karpov playing white, played e4. Let's actually connect to Livebook and add a Kbitzer. Okay, so Sicilian defense was played by Viktor Korchnoi. We have knight f3, d6, and actually we go into the Sicilian dragon variation, which is sometimes played at high levels, but it's thought to be a little bit on the risky side. Here, bishop e3, this is the most popular move to play. So white's idea is usually to play f3, which takes away that g4 square, queen d2 and castle queenside, and try and exchange off the bishop, and then maybe an h-pawn attack. So that's the basic idea of this variation. It's very direct. So bishop g7, we see f3. By the way, knight g4 I don't believe is on here. If we look at knight g4 here, bishop b5 check is a rude interruption. You don't want this because there's no knight c6 here. At the moment you play bishop d7, there's bang, queen takes g4. There's a little trap to be aware of here. Knight g4 is just not playable. So bishop g7, we have f3 now, knight c6, queen d2, black castles, bishop c4. So this is the main bishop c4 Yugoslav attack against the dragon. Bishop d7, so this is all pretty trodden territory. h4, rook c8, it's pretty standard stuff. Knight e5, white castle with queenside. And here, it seems in Livebook h5 is the move. If you look at Livebook, it's very theoretical, the dragon. I'll give you an example. h5, bishop g5, rook c5. There's been loads of games from this position. It's just very, very theoretical, the dragon stuff. It just goes on and on. There's even loads of games from this position. Well, now we're getting into this, but it's just so theoretical. But anyway, so this does seem to be one of the main moves, h5. It wasn't played in this game. We see knight c4, and white just took that off. h5, and it seems black, in some respects, would be happy because this kind of makes the whole hg less effective without the bishop there pinning that pawn. So you'd think black would be doing quite well here. Knight takes h5, g4, knight f6. Now this is an interesting moment of the game where I think theoretical preparation for this match was very important, and I think this was prepared line, and this is an interesting key move here, which is knight de2. It just reinforces against potential exchange sacrifices on c3, so it makes white pretty solid. If, for example, let's just say bishop h6, there's some dangers here actually. Knight takes e4 is on d4 anyway. There's some tactical dangers. It's pretty tricky actually with that bishop and that rook on c4. So yeah, this is a very interesting, solid positional looking move. Now usually here it seems rook e8 26 times in Livebook. Rook e8. This wasn't the choice in the game. The choice in the game is queen a5. Let's have a look for a moment at rook e8, for example, like this. This position apparently is thought to be, even though that looks really quite dangerous, this position is thought to be equalish. Yeah, this is an intriguing knight sack here for a couple of pawns, but this has been seen before. There's been 4 games from this position. Actually, technically white should be doing quite well, but yeah, it's an interesting position. I think black's got good piece coordination for the piece, so okay. So apparently that kind of thing's been played before. So rook e8 seems to be a key move here. Now in this game we see queen a5, which looks fairly logical, just to sort of try and maybe double up rooks and then play bishop e6 and then a2 sometimes. We have white playing bishop h6, that's taken, queen takes, rook fc8, and now a very interesting move again, strengthening white's position. So we have rook d3, just reinforcing that c3 knight. Rook 4 c5. But here there's a very powerful sequence which I think was overlooked. Let's see, was this already a bad mistake? Rook c5. Why was rook c5 played? That's interesting as well to ask. An interesting move maybe to consider is bishop e6. Just bishop e6. This position looks to be fairly dangerous, but maybe black has some interesting resources here, like to pop the queen back to g7. That's very nifty, isn't it? So maybe black has some interesting resources, but in the game, yeah, we see this might be a mistake. It seems to be designed against g5 because we've got this battery now, so it looks like a clever design to it. The queen on a5 is sort of justifying itself, stopping g5, and if white really hasn't got g5, then how does white's attack actually proceed? However, guess what white played now. So white played here. Any ideas? Anyone awake? Give you 20 seconds because it's a live stream on YouTube. So white to play here. What would you play here? Okay. Oh, hi Kremnik student, by the way. E5 you say? I'm not sure E5 does anything. Let's check out E5. I think it might be safe just to take that actually. If your idea is knight E4, actually this rook takes E4 here. This is very tactical. And queen takes A2. Apparently black's doing really well here. Yeah, black's doing exceptionally well in this line. Yeah, I think white wouldn't have any attack here, and black's looking forward to some threats like rook takes, and then knight takes e4. It's very dangerous. Yeah, I think black's doing very well here. Okay, so, but interesting, yeah, e5. No, actually, it was, believe it or not, it was g5 anyway. G5 anyway. It looks as though that, by design, to stop g5, it's played anyway. Outrage. Outrage. What an outrage. Now, the first thing to consider, what if it's not taken? What if knight h5? Here, actually, white could play knight f4. And it seems the rook on d3 is the one supporting c3 now. So this is really dangerous. You know, if takes, we can see that this could lead to mate. And if takes here, I think, because of that rook on d3, I think this is okay. There's nothing too much for white to worry about. It's just going to mate black actually on G7. Yeah. So given that knight h5 is basically unplayable, we have rook takes g5, and now the stunning idea is revealed. I don't know if this is like, this must have been preparation. I think, as mentioned, this might have been just preparation actually against an unsuspecting Korchnoi. This next move is a real bone crusher, and it's actually the engine's top choice. And someone's screaming it out here, and you're all telling me it, even before I've asked. Okay, so what would you play here if I gave you 10 seconds? Yeah. Someone said knight d5. Okay, as well as rook d5. Okay, so there's an interruption possibility of this queen and rook with either knight d5 or rook d5. So which is it? If we look at knight d5, someone's saying this is winning. No, actually, not according to Houdini 6 here. It seems black would play rook takes d5 here, and then queen takes a2, and black would be in the driving seat. For example, black's in the driving seat here, it seems. Black's doing well there. And if we took with this, again, queen takes a2. So this is not really doing anything, this way of playing the interruption. Yeah, knight d5 doesn't seem to do anything. The way it seems to play this is this interruption, rook d5. So we're threatening queen g5 now, yeah, because of that interruption. Now, here, rook takes d5 was played in this position. Let's have a look. If knight takes, it just runs into that mate in 2. The knight's really needed to support h7. So rook takes here, because what else? The queen's attacked. It's like fork as well. We've just forked the queen and rook, haven't we? So rook takes is played. Knight takes is threatening horrible things like knight takes e7. Now I don't believe black has time. He'll just get wiped out, I think, here with knight takes e7. And I think this is just good enough. Apparently there might even be stronger with this, because I don't think the rook's going anywhere because of this queen f8, for example. Queen f8 is mating. So I think black's pretty tied down here. This is also just clearly much winning for white. This position here, where we could like take on c8 at leisure. There's always queen f8 after as well. So yeah, that's really a disaster to play queen takes a2. Knight takes is the mate in 2 again. So black hasn't got too many options, and protects e7. And now we have knight ef4. And so there's a big idea, at least 2 big ideas, well, of like taking and then knight d5 again. We see bishop c6, which seems quite a clever defensive try and necessary to at least stop this recharging of d5. The bishop's ready, protecting d5. But this is something really fascinating in this position, about this position. There's another bone-crushing move, a super accurate move that's played in this position. So super accurate, engine's top choice as well, and it was played by Karpov. I wonder if you can guess it here. Super accurate move. Okay, Antonio says he knows this game by heart. I mean, yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting game. We have this amazing Okay, it looks tempting to play knight takes f6. Now, given that's been mentioned, and I'm not sure knight f6 actually leads anywhere. This is the problem. It might seem promising, but you're actually kicking the king away to an escape, and there's no actual follow-up here. For example, in fact, black would be better here after queen g5. Black would actually be better. Yeah, so that's actually quite dangerous to encourage the king to go to the center. Quite dangerous. Instead, no, we have the move e5. You might think, e5? e5? What is this e5? For example, let's say d takes for a moment. This is very different because actually after knight takes, there's a crushing move available to white in this position. This is a variation. White play here. What would you play in this variation? Sorry, after e takes, white play here in this variation. Can you see a winning move for white in this position? Yeah, I hope you can spot this one. Knight h5 actually threatening mate. You might wonder, how does e5 relate to that? You might wonder. Let's have a look for a moment. Okay, if takes, then there's rook g1, and then we're just mating here. Now, why was e5 necessary there, and not knight h5 immediately? Because knight h5 immediately, knight takes, and if rook takes, queen e1 checkmate. Whoa, queen e1 checkmate. Yeah, this is fascinating, isn't it? How e5 plays a big role here in this position. Sorry, if we go back to this position, e5 there. Sorry, I think I've got the wrong position where I said knight h5. Knight h5 here. Yeah, no, this is the position where the queen's still here. So by playing e5 first, let's have a look at this again. So we said basically we kill off knight h5 because we don't want this rook lured over there. So we kill off knight h5. And then we play knight h5. This is a killer now in this exact position. So yeah, e5, yeah, is an absolute killer. You might think, well, hold on, what about this move order? What about this move order? Do you see a snag here? Why e5? Why was e5 important? What's the fly in the ointment here? The fly in the ointment in this line without e5. What makes e5 so special? Can you see the resource for black, which is not suppressed? Resource for black here. Yeah, this is why e5 is so special, because queen g5 is the fly in the ointment, isn't it? It's check. Yeah, and this actually makes the position not so clear at all. Because even though white wins the exchange, black's got a lot of pawns there, and pass pawns as well. In fact, black might be technically better, believe it or not. Even though it's the exchange down, black's actually in the driving seat here. Look at these pawns. It might at least equal. So yeah, this e5 kind of interrupts this business with queen g5 checking in that line. So that's fascinating. So yeah, e5. Okay, so in the game we had actually bishop takes d5 being played, and now white plays e takes, threatening that mate in one. E takes. Now we have queen takes h7, king f8, and here there's only one way to play the position again. It seems the top move is played, which is Queen H8 check, and black here resigned, because let's have a look. King E7, there's a very simple clear kill here. What does white want to do in this position? There's actually a simple clinical kill sequence here. Can you spot what white's play? What would white do in this position? I'll give you 20 seconds. So this is past the point of resignation, but there's a move here which would just finish black off. Okay, and that move is not rook e1, because then queen takes e1. Whoops, checkmate. No, we want to get the e1 square. We want to win this rook, and we actually want to drag that queen away from e1. Knight takes d5, and then we would have the crushing rook e1 check, which would win that rook rather safely. And if queen e5, actually probably the strongest might. Well, we could just take the queen. That's winning. That's fair enough. So yeah, it's a sweet game from Karpov's perspective. A lot of it might have been prepared. Yeah, a lot of this might have been prepared. So we have what themes can we remember or be instructed by this game? I think one theme is the reinforcement of c3 in many variations. This was a classic knight retreat. Another theme is that interruption move e5 before crashing through. This knight h5 tactic in the scenes is very important as well, especially with e5 blocking that g5 square. So there's a lot of interruptions going on, and in the end, when the king's kicked in the centre, that rook becomes a liability. Antonio Varela writes, although Karpov only played 7 or 8 moves, the rest was preparation. It's a brilliant game. Yes, brilliant game. Okay, hope you got something from that game. Let's go on to game 2 tonight. Question: why not knight h5 after e takes f6 when the bishop was on d5? Okay, let's go back. Now, when the bishop was on d5, when the bishop was on d5, after e takes, well, when the bishop, this is what happens. This is what happens. Threatens mate, and then, oh, you're saying here, knight. Look at that. We've got a focal point. I think I see the answer without checking with the engine. Uh-oh. Rook e1. Rook e1. Yeah, that would be a tragicomedy variation. So which is why it's important to go with queen takes h7 and check, and knight takes d5. Not rook e1 here, but knight takes d5. Then we can just pick up the rook. Yeah. So there are some tricks with that. There were some tricks with the queen. In some of the variations, it's all very carefully navigated, isn't it? When we look at these games, they're really actually very precisely engineered move orders, and it's kind of impossible to appreciate the strength of the move orders without getting in contact with the variations. I think you might agree with that. The variations provide strong evidence why the move orders chosen were so precise. So it is an engineering work of art, this game. It stops all these cunning resources that black had. It suppresses all of them, doesn't it? The actual move orders. Okay, so yeah, very very cunning. You might. It's good that you guys are saying, why can't you play knight h5 here? It just emphasizes the strength of the actual game, and shows that we really need in chess to make sure we get the exact game PGN, because these games are really kind of perfect sometimes, how they've been played. Okay, so let's have a look. So game 2 now. I'd like to show you tonight. Game 2 is Bagirov against Gufeld, and it's called the Mona Lisa. Actually, funny enough, I've got a thing about the Mona Lisa. Smile. Actually, it's on my iPhone. This is a bit of trivia. The Mona Lisa's on my iPhone. It's my backdrop on the iPhone. See it, Mona Lisa. Oh, I'm fascinated. It's my iPhone backdrop. So anyway, this game was called the Mona Lisa. Yeah. So let's have a look. So the Mona Lisa. So Vladimir Bagirov was playing against Eduard Gufeld. Now, who are these guys? Bagirov, born in Baku, 1998 World Senior Chess Championship. He won it. He awarded the IM title in 1963, GM title in 1978. Trainer and author of note. He helped Kasparov in his early years. So Bagirov's quite experienced. And who is Gufeld? Gufeld. He was born in Ukraine, formerly USSR. He was awarded the USSR Master title in 1958. 1961, the USSR Armed Forces Championship. Awarded the GM title in 1967. And was a well-respected chess journalist and trainer. He was personal trainer of Mayor Chimbandanzi. So yeah, they're both really celebrated, accomplished players. So let's have a look at this. So D4 from Bagirov, and we have G6, C4. This is a move order which gets into a King's Indian defense. Simish variation with F3. Black castles. Bishop E3. So I used to love playing this as white actually quite a bit. This Simish variation. It seems very clear cut. And it's a bit like that dragon line. It shares some of the ideas against that dragon we've just seen. The F3, this pawn structure depriving this G4, and this basic idea is still prevalent in this game. And there's a different opening, but some of the same shared concepts, basically. We have Rook B8. Now, by itself, this looks like a standard way to try and generate some counterplay. Queen D6, A6, Bishop A6. So White gets on with that thematic exchange of the bishops. B5, H4, E5. Now White takes, and it looks like White's having a good hack attack here after H5. It looks pretty dangerous. We have King H8. And we have some similar ideas to the game we've just seen. White wants to distract this knight, to get into H7. Wants to distract this knight and plays actually Knight D5. And it starts to be scary already because we've got a convergence of the rook, the queen, and the defender to be taken away from H7. It starts to be scary already. Black very calmly plays B takes C4. And we do have HG, which activates the rook. You might think this is pretty scary. And now the queen went in. It's very, very scary. White's immediately threatening. Knight takes F6 now. Now here's where things get really quite interesting. Black plays the move Knight H5. Knight H5 in this position. And you might wonder, well, can't this be shifted out of the way with G4? It's possible that G4 might be an inaccuracy, but that's the move that was played here. Maybe castling queenside was a better idea, because this B2 pawn is hanging, right? If White castles queenside, this might have presented some difficulties for Black, to be honest. For example, some real difficulties. For example, this line, it's still very dangerous for Black. Very, very dangerous, because we've still got this huge pressure on the H file. But okay, things got very entertaining basically, because White plays instead of protecting B2, White plays G4. Now black really hasn't got much choice here. He has to follow this concept through. If he plays knight f6, actually then there's knight takes f6 and we're just mating. So there's not much choice here other than to sacrifice the knight. And the idea is revealed here to shut the door on the queen, to trap the queen. So the queen's kind of trapped here on h6 and it shuts that rook out of the game as well. So it's done two things. White plays rook g1, try and break the queen out. Now if black dares move the rook, then knight f6 is actually very strong. For example, it's threatening mate, and if here rook takes g7, and this is really strong. For example here then there's rook g8 check. So black has to play very precisely here, not rook g8. That f6 square needs to be maintained. The maintenance of f6 needs to be a priority. So how does black handle that? Well, actually he plays g4, making use of this bishop, which is just lazing around, hasn't moved, but it's very important here to blunt that rook. So g4, and here white castles queenside, and now black just grabs another pawn, and things get very violent now in the game. If white had played fg, then rook f7 with the idea, well, is okay. Yeah, rook f7 is okay. Black's got some interesting possibilities coming up here. What is white actually threatening? Well, okay. Black would be doing well in this position anyway. So white actually plays a very violent looking move instead. Knight ef4. It was crazy stuff. The immediate threat's knight g6 check, and it sort of prompts black to take that. How does he want to take that? If he takes with the rook, this gets totally crazy here. If he took with the rook, in fact there might be stronger. I mean this is dangerous. This is just dangerous. Hitting the rook there, and it's all getting a bit weird this game now. Yeah, this variation. So this is starting to create chaos on the board. Knight ef4. It was actually taken with the pawn, and we have knight takes f4. Now with this big threat of knight g6 check and bishop takes c4 check, this would be very unpleasant for black. So black decided to take that off, and he's got rid of, I mean it's sometimes very good to just simply get rid of the attacking pieces if you can. If you have to sack the exchange, you have to sack the exchange. Now this pawn is also survival of this pawn is celebrated here with c3. So it's actually closing in on white's king here, taking away some escape squares. So this pawn that's survived that. And black looks to have a few resources up his sleeve here. A number of resources actually up the sleeve. Including like knight b4, or even, yeah, there's other stuff. So anyway, bishop c4 was played, hitting the rook, and the rook moves to a3, just maintaining things for a moment. F takes g4, and now we have knight b4. The threat is, with that taking the escape square, the threat is actually rook a1 checkmate, because that pawn and knight, everything's coordinating well there. We have king b1. Now a really clever move indeed. Now this is where it gets sort of stunning. Yeah, it's kind of stunning. It's I don't know how to describe this. It's okay. Anyway, but so I'll leave you with the challenge. Can you find black's play here? What would you play with black in this position. The key thing to remember about this position, by the way, is this bishop's kind of lethal. Yeah, if this queen moved and it wasn't check, then queen f6 would be checkmate. So that's a major constraint you've got to think about in this position. This f6 needs to be maintained here. So how can black possibly be in any position to get in queen b8 check? You know, that's the big challenge. How black get that position where queen b8 check is possible? And it's one move and one move only. So again, we have, I mean, this is engine verification on this brilliancy game. There's a move here that exists which just is crushing. It's crushing. Okay, now someone mentioned knight d3. Knight d3, although that clears the b file, I think that's just rook takes d3 here. And if we played this, white has actually, believe it or not, rook takes c3 apparently, which takes away that key pawn. I'm not sure there'll be any attack after queen b8 check. King c2, and then the attack's gone. Yeah, the attack would be gone there. This is a crushing wipeout of white's attack. And if it takes here, then bishop takes e6. And if check here, king a1. And if check here, bishop a2. And then queen f6 again, threatening white's bishop up. So that would be no good. So that's the reason why knight d3 is no good. If bishop takes, I think yeah, black might be okay with the idea of queen b8 check coming up. Might just about be equal. But yeah, no, that's no good, knight d3, because of this mechanism. Instead, we have bishop e6. Now, one thing that you might think, well, what about, hold on, d5? Let's say we ignored that. Actually, it leads to the game move anyway. It leads to the game move anyway. So I'll just show you. After bishop takes e6, guess what black uncorks in this position. So yeah, black to play here. What does black play in this position? Yeah, it's funny, in this particular configuration, I have to say the forcing moves of chess require chess to be hard work. Basically, you can't get away without calculation chess, because the forcing moves celebrate the nuances of a particular configuration. And it just so happens this forcing move is celebrating the nuance that the queens on f4 is a subject to tempo gain. It's a big forcing move because it means that queen b8 check is now on the table as well. So the first thing to note is if rook takes d3, check is going to be killing. So here, check is just mating. So that's the basic premise, to get queen b8 check in. So white actually plays the move queen f7 here, and now we have a wonderful continuation, check, and the bishop dropped back here. If king c2, this actually leads to a forced checkmate with knight b4 check. Yeah, this is like a forced mate in 4. If here is rook a1 checkmate, and if here rook a1 is one of the nice checkmates, and then knight c2, and then queen b2 checkmate. So that's out of the question to play king c2 here. It's actually a mate in 4 because of knight b4. Just to show that again, by the way, I don't think we missed anything here. Yeah, there's only like king c1. Just to show that again, there's rook a1. Yeah, not too many choices there anyway. So we have bishop b3. That's taken king c2. Now here is a very clever aspect of this game. Very, very clever. And in fact, there's there's kind of an interruption tactic idea as part of this sequence now. So black to play here. Sorry, what's the refutation of rook a1? Maybe we'll check that out after. Let's run it through at least once. So black to play here. Okay, it's crazy, but knight b4 check, just offering the rook. If we look at this position, if we play something like rook b2 check, there's a big snag. White just ends up being better after takes. Carnivorous king check, and there's the resource queen c4 as well, which is a right pain. And black's run out of bits. He's a rook down. c2, white could end up just being better, simply taking here now, and just giving a rook back, just to have a better ending after rook c1. If white was stubborn and didn't want to give a rook back there, then I think it's a disaster with rook b3 check, looking at that pin and then taking the queen. So, but if white gives back the rook, he'll have a nice ending. So yeah, it seems as though the straightforwards is just not working. The straightforward sometimes doesn't work in chess. That's what makes chess such a crazy game. It's just not working. You might think this line, by the way, I think the problem with this, the queen's hanging here, so we'd have queen e2 check, queen f2 check. We win that queen. So that's why queen c4 would be necessary here. And also, if you want to check out this for a moment, I think it's just a mate here, check. And here, actually, oh, there's a nice mate in 2 here. I wonder if I'll test you on the mate in 2. Black to play as a mate in 2 in this position. Can you see it? So this is a variation of the game. There's a mate in 2 in this position. Can you see it? This is a long wait. I've got to pour some water. Come on. So find the mate in 2. Okay, well done. Queen a3 forces king c4, and then we have the embarrassing queen b3 check mate. Yeah. So okay. So anyway, white has a way out, though, as mentioned. White has a way out by playing queen c4 here. So Black, though, played this knight b4 check, offering the rook. If the rook's not accepted by the king, then it doesn't matter. Rook b1 check, we can force that rook to be taken, and we get this position with knight d5 check, which interrupts that diagonal. And we have check here, and this is a little bit similar to the game, check, and you note that knight stopping king e3, so the king's kind of dragged back, and then the queen goes over here, funny enough. This is very similar to the game, I'm sorry about this. Queen b2, and then queen b4 checkmate. But in the game continuation, which is very similar pattern here, so king c1 wasn't chosen in the game, but king takes. We still have this mechanism knight d5 check. So you see this discover check, it holds the pawn and it holds the e3 square. So that's important in some of these lines where the king wants to escape on the queen side, but you see, but with the knight and queen here, this escape to the king side is not happening, because after here, check, the king, because of that knight controlling e3, is forcibly dragged back after queen b5 check. Very cruel that the knight and queen are coordinating so well, dragging the king back to its death. White resigned here, because if king c2 now, and note queen c4 has been stopped, it's an interruption tactic as well. So not only stopping key defensive pieces getting in the way, but taking away key escape squares. And if king c2, we have queen e2 check. This is hopeless. If here, queen b2 check, and if here, ouch! Actually, this is different from the other line. Queen b5 checkmate. It's cruel, it's cruel. And if rook d2, you might be asking, is that desperate? Yes. It doesn't really do much because we still end up in the same place with queen b5 check in the end. The Mona Lisa, so you don't know if she's smiling or what. So that's my fascination with the Mona Lisa. And so maybe this game has an aspect, wasn't White having some glorious attack here. There's a bit of ambiguity. Maybe if, but it all got to, yeah, Black played absolutely brilliantly to prove his attack was faster than White's. I think that's the key lesson. How to prove your attack is faster than the opponent's. And it seems that the forcing moves, the beauty of forcing moves, they really celebrate the precise configuration of pieces, if you think about them. So they really make chess very position sensitive indeed. How, yeah, particular forcing moves, like the location of the queen, you know. Yeah, anyway, it's a very, very powerful, elegant forcing sequence. Hope you enjoyed that one, and hope you got something from it. Okay, I'm enjoying this as much as you. Yeah, so I'm going to go now, and have a good week. Okay, thanks very much. Comments, questions, likes, shares appreciated on YouTube. Cheers then.